This is the Metro. I'm Robin Vincent, and those were the sounds of hundreds of protesters outside Macomb Community College on Tuesday, chanting "Hands off." The activists were expressing their dissent and distaste for President Donald Trump. We're now 100 days into Trump's second term. He's done a lot of things in his short time back in office. He's put tariffs on much of the world. He's slashed federal government jobs. He's cut education funding and pressured colleges and businesses to end diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. Through all of this, his poll numbers have taken a hit. They've dropped from 52% to 44% since he took office. But 44% is sizable. A lot of people still love Trump. They want him to change how America stands in the world. They want American norms to change. They want someone to come in and shake up the old order. That 44% are continuing to support the president. But what about the everyday folks who don't like what Trump is doing? What does resistance look like to them? Although Trump handily won Macomb County, not everyone there is happy with the president. The new local group, Macomb Defenders Rising, is trying to combat the president. And to talk about their work now, we have co-chair Katrina Mineta here with us. Katrina, welcome to the Metro.
Hi, Robin. Thanks for having me.
And just a heads up, the Metro invited both Lisa McLean and John James, representatives of Macomb County's 9th and 10th congressional districts, onto our show. We're still waiting to hear back from them. And we should note, John James is running for governor. So, Katrina, why did you form Macomb Defenders Rising?
Yeah, so after the election, even before the election, I became very concerned about the president's policies and what he was arguing for. So about a year and a half ago, I started to read Project 2025. And my background is in sociology. So when I started to read that, I realized there's some real big red flags right now happening in this country and in that document. So I started to get on social media, and I started to post about my concerns, which was a fascist authoritarian takeover of our government. And after the election, I was like, there has to be something that we do to resist this, because Americans will not stand for authoritarianism in a democracy that this country was founded on.
Could you talk about what you saw in Project 2025 that signaled to you that it was promoting fascism?
So within fascism, what you'll start to see is that many of the people or the administration will start to consolidate power. So one of the bases of Project 2025 is a restructuring of the executive branch to make the power consolidated into the executive branch. It's called the unitary executive theory. And you're seeing that start to play out now. What's happening is the federal government is slashing all the institutions of our current government and putting the power in the hands of the executive branch.
We are certainly seeing the president push back against the judiciary and not follow judges' orders. That is absolutely one concrete example. I do want to get into your story a bit, though, Katrina, because you haven't always been active in politics. Why did you decide to get involved now?
Yeah, well, I for one, don't think I'd be able to live with myself under a authoritarian government. So if we don't stand up, the important part about resistance is that you get involved now when it's safe to do so. I mean, I'm starting to feel like this is a dangerous position to be in as an activist in this political moment. But it's safer now if we do it now rather than later, when there's actual laws that prevent us from doing it. So we have to speak up now while we have the freedom to do so, because there's still a constitution in this country. Unfortunately, the Constitution is not up on the White House website as we speak right now, which is one of those red flags that I'm talking about. But like I said, we need to, as we continue to speak up, more people build the courage to speak up, and then more institutions will start to speak up with us.
Can we go back to something you said, which is that you don't necessarily feel safe as an activist right now? I'm wondering if you've been intimidated by others or what reasons are making you feel that way.
Well, I mean, we see what happened to Mahmoud Khalil. He was protesting against what's happening in Gaza, and the federal government arrested him. You're seeing the attacks to federal judges who have now just been arrested. We're seeing U.S. citizens get deported. And if we start to eliminate due process, I'm very concerned about activists, because the government can come in and make up whatever excuse they have if there is no due process. There's no way to prove anything one way or another. So somebody like me, who is in opposition to this government, could be arrested, not have due process, and then float out to El Salvador. That's very concerning, and it should be for every American.
I mean, you are echoing what we have heard here on this program by many free speech advocates, by political analysts, that everyone should be concerned about the ways in which the Trump administration has been going after people who've been protesting. And these are folks who are permanent residents. They are green card holders. But what we've heard from a lot of free speech advocates is that, yes, everyone should be concerned, to your point, because they have said this is the starting point, essentially. I want to understand how you've been able to grow your group so quickly. You've got, about 500 people in the group in Macomb County, which, again, we know is a conservative county. How have you been able to do that?
Yeah, well, I think it's grown very organically. So I think that speaks to the fact that Americans are concerned, Americans are worried, and they want to get involved. We haven't been particularly politically engaged for a long time in this country. But when people start to see due process getting stripped away, when people start to see attacks on the NIH funding and these ridiculous tariffs that are harming people's 401ks and retirement accounts, people are waking up. I mean, there is, like I said, this is happening organically. We're not really even recruiting actively. So this is being shared word of mouth, and it's just spreading like wildfire. I don't even know how to explain how we've grown so fast in 14 weeks. We're up to 540 members as of this morning.
Would you say that you're meeting people who are joining forces with you in Macomb Defenders Rising, who were not political at one time, who, like yourself, made this pivot and are now really politically engaged?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I meet people, I'm in the community every single day, and many of them are engaged or have been engaged for a long while, but I'm meeting people that are even formerly voted for the president, the current president. I'm meeting former Republicans. I'm meeting people who have never got involved in politics on any level, like myself. And because it's so scary. People see what's happening and they are alarmed. They're afraid. We've really been focusing on the Medicaid cuts that are currently up for vote in the House. And, I meet members from our community every single day who will be extremely harmed. I mean, these are families who have children with disabilities. And they're terrified. If this funding is cut, what are they going to do? We don't even have an answer for them.
It's a steep learning curve. If you haven't always or for a long time been paying attention to the civic process, to get up to speed with all of it is a lot. And that right there can really be a barrier for people. Are you doing anything within your group to help educate people to understand how things work? Because even the way that bills move through Congress, for example, is not a very clear process.
Right. So we have a few pillars that we focus on. One of them is educating the community. So we have monthly member meetings, and we intend to continue to bring in different speakers. Next in May, we'll have the ACLU with us, who will be educating our community about what's happening in Michigan and what the ACLU is doing to prevent those certain things that the federal government is doing to harm our community. We intend to have other speakers as we continue to go on. And that is one of the pillars, because it is so, I mean, even for myself, and I consider myself very, very political engaged now. I'm doing this every day. I read a ton. I saw something over the summer. I read 1 million words on Substack. But even for me, it's hard to keep up. And there's so many attacks from so many different levels every day, all day. that this is that's one of the strategies of an authoritarian government, is they kind of attack you from all over the place so that you can't keep up, so that you are confused, so that people don't know where to resist.
Would you say it's a luxury then to be able to even keep up? It's a privilege. It
is a bit of a privilege. I mean, some people don't have access to this education, and that's what we're trying to make available for people, for our community. I think that at this political moment, it's really important, and I do want to stress that, because it's disheartening to see what's happening, and if we're not informed, it's really easy to get fooled, and I think a lot of people have been fooled by this administration.
This is The Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. Our guest is Katrina Mineta. She's the co-chair of the activist group Macomb Defenders Rising. It's upset about the actions of the Trump administration, and we're now 100 days into President Trump's second term. So we're talking about what this group is doing. Although his poll numbers have declined, Katrina, a lot of people still like President Trump, as I've mentioned. I want to play a clip. Here is Michael Seltzer, an Oakland County Republican who's repeatedly supported Trump. Here he is speaking with us a few months ago.
It's been exactly as advertised. He was going to hit the ground running. He had 4 years of thinking about the possibility of getting back into this position. He made promises along the way. He was much more ready. This time he came roaring in. Sure, some of it is going to be off-putting because he is reactionary. He is explosive. He is unpredictable. Those were many of the reasons that people aligned with this president.
Katrina, do you think the authoritarianism that you and many scholars believe President Trump is promoting is what some people actually want? That is, do you think some Americans are so frustrated with politics or with challenges that they're facing right now in society that they want a strongman leader to take over, to just take the reins and do something completely different?
Yeah, so I think that's the nature of our authoritarianism, where somebody comes in, a strongman, like you said, comes in at a time where the population is extremely vulnerable. And I think that is a failure of our government in general. I think there is no question that Americans have been frustrated by this government. And we could go into the reasons. There's many of them. So, in some level, I understand where people are coming from, because they're dissatisfied with the status quo. And that's why you see this, interest in anti-establishment politics, not even just with President Trump, but with Bernie Sanders. There's an incredibly growing interest in his movement fighting oligarchy. So I don't think that if you were to ask any everyday American, are you against the Constitution, or are you for values that are not pro-democracy? That's what we are, a pro-democracy group. The vast majority of Americans are going to say, no, I believe in the Constitution. I believe in democracy. What's happening is authoritarians come in and they promote an alternative reality. So there's a very manipulative nature. Propaganda is being spewed out. And I don't think Americans live in the same reality anymore. It's not that we're arguing over policy so much. It's that we're arguing over, does that policy actually exist or not? I'm hearing people, the president the other day said, I think it was the interview with Time Magazine, MS-13 on Abrego Garcia, or not, it was somebody's hand that said MS-13, and they photoshopped it. And the president was in the interview stating that was not photoshopped. And it was completely obvious that it was photoshopped. It was typed on there.
Katrina, here's the question. How do you bridge these different realities that you see Americans living in?
You know what? It's a question I live with every single day. I consider myself very skilled in understanding other viewpoints. And I have had a very difficult time having conversations with the opposite side, because we're arguing over if the sky is blue or not, right? We're not even on the same planet. So it is incredibly hard. I think it takes patience. I think it takes a deep level of conversation, not just something on the internet here or there, comment here or there. But at the same time, resistance movements do not require a majority of the population to create lasting change. So we are big at Macomb Defenders Rising on promoting the idea that if we can mobilize 3.5% of the population on a consistent basis over and over again, we can create lasting change. And that is research done by Erica Chenoweth, I believe her name is. Yep. And she's done a lot of research on this for over 100 years of study shows that whenever it has never failed when 3.5% of the population is engaged.
I've spoken with Erica Chenoweth a few times, and she studies social movements and the power of social movements. And her research really ramped up during the first Trump administration. And for you, as someone who studied sociology, then I'm sure that this is really resonating for you, what you've been studying and looking at when it comes to the power of social movements. But again, we cannot ignore the fact that a lot of people right now are trying to survive, that they're not necessarily seeing democracy as their biggest concern. They're seeing the economy as their biggest concern. I mean, how do you speak to people who are really struggling financially?
Well, I mean, I think that if the president continues to go along the path he is, we will see it. We will see it in the economy, and Americans will feel it at a much harder level than even probably during the pandemic. There is predictions that recession is on the way. So, and if the tariffs remain in place, I think that we will go into a recession. A lot of times people say they wanted lower taxes. Well, tariffs are taxes. So you're not lowering taxes. You've just raised prices on Americans. Now inflation is going to go up. And I'm concerned that we could even go into stagflation, which is where you have a recession where people are losing their jobs and then prices still remain high. And that's an incredibly difficult problem to solve. So I think that Americans might not see it today, but the result of these policies, if they continue, Americans will feel.
Who do you think you are focused on or will have a better opportunity bringing into your movement? I'm thinking about folks who didn't vote and who maybe consider themselves non-political versus people who voted for Trump, let's say, but are not hardcore so-called Trumpers. Who do you think you can reach beyond the folks who already were very angered, that is, about Trump's reelection?
I think that, as people continue to see our movement grow, and that's part of the strategy, I should say, is that when people start to see the cracks in the foundation, that, maybe there isn't this big mandate. Maybe there are people that think like me. Maybe there is something wrong with what's happening. When you start to grow in large numbers. In the hands-off protests that we hosted in Detroit just a couple weeks ago, it was a nationwide protest. It brought in over 5 million Americans together. And when people start to see that, there could be a crack in their thinking. Like, what is happening here? Why are so many people standing up and concerned? And, I don't know if we'll really ever reach the hardcore MAGA folks. And, I give them all the empathy in the world, but I don't know if we'll reach them. I think I'm more focused on the people who didn't vote and the people who might have voted for Trump but can still be persuaded.
There is a growing divide between people who support Republicans and those who support Democrats, and that is along the lines of education. The more education people have, the more they're typically going to lean Democrat. How diverse is your group by education?
I don't have those stats, so I can't speak to that. A lot of our members are engaged, as we've talked about, and they are informed enough to a certain level, but I don't have the stats on education levels.
Before we let you go, for those who want to protest and join the movement against authoritarianism, but are either afraid of speaking up or they feel that, they're just one voice and it doesn't matter, what would you say to them?
I would say that there's evidence that when we do speak up, the president backs down a bit. He's very concerned about his numbers. And we've seen it recently when there was student visas that were revoked, and the public really pushed back on that, and he backed down. So I think there's a level of we have to choose bravery in this moment. I certainly have to choose bravery every single day. And it takes something, and I understand that. But when we're banded together, there's nothing that this government can do if we continue to rise up, because that blocks him. That's the block.
Katrina Mineta is the co-chair of the activist group Macomb Defenders Rising. Her organization was protesting Trump on Tuesday outside Macomb Community College. Their next member meeting is May 12th. Katrina, thank you for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you so much for having me.
Coming up, the Trump administration wants to strip funding from NPR and PBS. We'll unpack the president's tense relationship with the news media and the impacts on people's access to information. This is the Metro on WDET. Stay with us.